Three, two, one. Hey everyone, it's another edition of Convention Tea. Today we are going to be spilling the tea on WonderCon 2023. Here on the show we have myself, Scarlett, Rams, and Jared the Greek. Rams is visiting us from sunny old San Diego, and he decided to join us for an excursion up to WonderCon in Anaheim. So what brought you to WonderCon, Rams?
I saw a glowing cosmos of great power growing very intensely in the Anaheim area. I decided to train really hard with my masters, and I was awarded the cloth the bronze cloth of the Pegasus, and I made my way towards Anaheim to combat this great foe head to head against it. Basically, I'm just saying that there was a lot of Seiya things going on, and I figured, hey, you know what? Might as well go.
And we decided to adopt you for the weekend.
Yes, which I'm eternally grateful. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are eternally grateful. We'll get to that later.
Sure thing. What I like most about it is, now that you mention it, is like every single cosplay meetup was taking place at a fountain, and they're gonna have a Knights of the Zodiac Saint Seiya logo above their head. So like the Star Wars meetup, Knights of the Zodiac, G.I. Joe, Knights of the Zodiac, Disney, Knights of the Zodiac. And like I haven't really seen like a lot of promotional for this movie outside of social media and WonderCons. Like this is like the biggest advertising I've seen for like Knights of the Zodiac, because it was like all over WonderCon.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, we can get to that much later. But like I said, mainly I was here for podcasting reasons, but I did some other things as well. It's not like I didn't I didn't do other things as well. But like I said, for the most part, like I went there because the primary reason was because of that, for Cosmocast reasons. So, full disclosure, before I go any further, I'm gonna go into a lot of details. But if you want to go into like you want to hear like every detail about like the stuff, like what happened in the actual panels and stuff like that, I highly encourage you to all listen to the Saint Seiya Cosmocast episode 27, or no, it's 28. 28. And that's our newest episode, where I just spill, like, just as we're spilling the tea here, like the convention, I spill all the tea of both panels that I attended for us, Knights of the Zodiac as well. So like, here I'm gonna be a little bit more like in general. I'm gonna be discussing things, and discussing things outside of it. Like if you want to get the nitty and gritty of like what I experienced with like those particular panels, I highly suggest you guys check out my podcast.
All right, we will link that podcast in the bio so people could check it out. All right, let's spill the WonderCon 2023 tea. Click. But before we go into that, let's just tell you all about Scarlet Rhapsody. If this is your first time tuning into one of our live streams, or just tuning into Scarlet Rhapsody in general. So basically, I started this whole operation in university, out of my dorm. So like, you know what? I've been going to conventions. Maybe I should just blog about them, sure. So I started going to conventions at Anime Expo 1999 when it was at the Anaheim Convention Center. You know, same place where WonderCon took place. So, let me just blog about my experience. And you know what? Since then, our website has grown to have hundreds of documentation of convention reports from coast to coast. We used to live out on the East Coast. We have an East Coast representative. And I aim to continue Scarlet Rhapsody even way after university, to have an archive, a lore of convention history, because there's not a lot of us out there. I mean, yeah, there's like a lot of people who take cosplay photos, cool, but there's not a lot of people who really talk about the experience and what was it like being there. So that's why I still intend to run Scarlet Rhapsody for in an indefinite amount of time. So yeah, check us out here. With us on our team at WonderCon 2023, we got Rams, and we also have Jared the Greek.
Yeah, the same people you introduced as the people being the hosts of the show.
All right, so let's just kind of continue further. All right. WonderCon is a 3-day convention taking place in Anaheim. It used to have its roots in the Bay Area, because I remember I used to attend WonderCon back when it was up in San Francisco at the Moscone Center. And throughout the years, it moved to Anaheim. I believe it moved to Anaheim when we were living out in Boston. And basically, WonderCon is like the younger sibling to San Diego Comic Con. San Diego Comic Con owns WonderCon, and it's a mini version of Comic Con. You might even say it's a much more accessible version of San Diego Comic Con. It was still easy to get tickets prior to the show, too. Tickets were like around $135, $145 for the weekend. It was a huge price increase compared to previous years. And various people I spoke to who have attended WonderCon in the past, and also folks in the industry, have mentioned that not a lot of people, it's not the same kind of crowd as it used to be, because a lot of people in the industry no longer that normally would go to WonderCon no longer live in the area because they can do a lot of their work remote. And also because of inflation, it also may have deterred people from attending, considering the prices of attending conventions have also significantly gone up as well. My friend was even telling me, like, yeah, Saturday, like in the dealer's hall, it used to be shoulder to shoulder. I didn't really have an issue navigating the dealer's hall on Saturday, so I guess that's a good thing.
It was that crazy.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to like judge what crowds at WonderCon were like, because we were there last year. We don't even have a 0 hour a convention tea for last year, because we were there for like barely a day, because we were there to just run panels and then hop on a red-eye flight to Florida.
Yeah, that was insane, and I probably shouldn't do that again.
Yeah, because they're like, are you sure you want to do this on the same weekend we're going to Orlando?
But I wanted to maintain a good relationship with WonderCon doing panels there.
And we actually did run panels at WonderCon this year. Jay, tell us what panels that we ran.
We ended up running the new version of the Mythology of Final Fantasy, A Summoner's Guide to Summons, which was a lot of fun. And we also did Make Mine Mecha, the history of giant Japanese robots. So that's also a fun one as well.
All right, let's get started with this year's WonderCon. What was it all about? But first, let's talk about our sponsors. If you take a look at our avatars there, they were created by Mirarasol, and you can follow them here on Twitter. They do take commissions, and they're one of my favorite artists to promote on Twitter. When I was like looking for people to like commission artwork and create avatars of the Scarlet Rhapsody crew, I was like, you know what? I really like their designs. I really like their chibi-fied version. So you can check out check them out on Twitter. Hire them for a commission. They're totally awesome. And I just love how they chibi-fied Jay, myself, and Rams here. And Alice is supposed to be getting one too, but Alice still owes me some photos. All right, WonderCon. So this is the crew here who attended WonderCon. We got Jay cosplaying as Reno right at the Bandai Namco booth. Yeah, it was your first time bringing back Reno.
Yep, we gotta do a little work on the wig, but otherwise it came out pretty good. It was nice to wear it again, and I got dissed by several Final Fantasy cosplayers, so it reminds me of one of my first years of cosplay, when I first wore the same outfit.
And here I am cosplaying as Ningguang from Genshin Impact. Decided wanted to bring some Genshin love into the con. And WonderCon, we didn't really have a lot of Genshin Impact cosplayers compared to anime cons, but we'll get more into what were the most represented fandoms via cosplay of WonderCon in the next few slides. And we have Rams here just showing off his Saint Seiya pride.
Of course, like I always do.
All right.
I still love that bag so much, though. Not the bag from WonderCon, but the other bag I have on the side. That is such a cool bag.
Yeah, it's a totally neat bag. Yeah, just like seeing all the Knights of the Zodiac, like adverts like plastered around WonderCon. It's like, this is interesting.
I know that fun moment where there's a family, and the one kid of the family is like, I want to see the Zodiac movie, and the parents are trying to explain to him that it isn't out yet. He's like, but they have the posters everywhere. It's like, yes, it isn't out yet. You're going to have to wait like a month.
Yeah, May 12th. Yeah. All right, let's talk about some of the popular fandoms here at WonderCon. So, of course, like, I saw a lot of Disney cosplayers. I know they were very prevalent on Sunday because that's the day of the Disney cosplay meetup, but because I feel that Disney cosplays are just like so accessible, so from things from classic Disney princesses, Disney villains, a lot of those were running around WonderCon. Should be no surprise considering that Disneyland Park is right across the street. And of course, like there's always like Star Wars people running around. The photo in the middle is folks from Saber Guild. And it was really cool talking to them. Like, they were just talking about their sabers or how they made custom sabers because they are a lightsaber performance group. So I did see, like, a lot of Jedi, especially a lot of people in Mandalorian armor. And also, surprisingly enough, I saw a lot of X-Men cosplayers. Normally, I was like, yeah, there's a lot of MCU people, but there was a lot of X-Men love this year. There's a lot of love for mutants. So you have drag queen here, Ember Vale, cosplaying as Dazzler, and she had like a lot of did like a lot of bling to her Dazzler outfit, and I am like mad respect. So I'm like, okay, I gotta bust out my Dazzler costume again, because I saw not one, but actually a couple of Disco Dazzler cosplays. I'm like, okay, this is just a sign for me to just bust out Dazzler again. So would you agree that these would be like some of the popular fandoms present at WonderCon?
Yeah, definitely a lot of X-Men stuff for sure, and a surprisingly large amount of Star Wars stuff. Those are the things that stand out to me the most.
Yeah, I was gonna say Star Wars is like the one that stood out the most to me. Like, if there's ever like a solid number, if there's like a solid number one, it's gotta be Star Wars, with X-Men being number two, and then like MCU being number three, and then number four being like Disney, and then number five being like anime in general.
Of course. I did see a lot of Demon Slayer cosplayers this time around, but I think like the next season will change that around.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone will be back on the Demon Slayer hype train. Okay. Next slide. I want to just make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh no, it like went all the way here. Okay. Alright, but wait. There were some hidden gem cosplays that were around the convention. So on Sunday, you weren't here, Rams, but there was a Chronicles of Riddick cosplayer. Someone's cosplay.
I was just saying that I thought that was Don Torino.
No, a lot of people thought he was Don Torino, and I'm like,
it's almost as if both of them wear similar clothes.
Yeah, I ran into him in the parking lot. It looks like he and his wife were like leaving the con, and I'm like, this is like a perfect place to take a photo of this guy right here.
It's dark enough to fits more for the character.
Yeah.
And then I ran into this lady like on Sunday. She was cosplaying from this Terry Gilliam movie called Brazil, which is a movie I haven't heard of in like ages. I'm like, whoa, like people are like cosplaying from esoteric cult movies. That's pretty awesome. What got my attention first, like, oh, hey, she's wearing leopard print. I digged the leopard prints. Like, yeah, let me take a photo. And she explained what she was from. Granted, I haven't really seen Brazil. Like, there was a time when I was, like, kind of into Monty Python. And it was, like, just on my queue of things to watch because it is, like, one of Terry Gilliam's, like, weirder movies.
Yep.
So, like, yeah, like, I'm wearing a shoe on my head. Like, yeah, pretty awesome. And then, like, I have my buddy here, Joanna, cosplaying as Marilyn Monroe from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And, like, it is just, like, the pitch perfect pink for that outfit. Like, oh my god, I love it. Also, another surprising, I had to do a separate slide for it. There were a ton of cosplayers from Everything Everywhere all at once.
Oh my gosh,
I wasn't expecting people to cosplay from this, but you have my buddy here, Cosplay Mom 99, cosplaying as Jamie Lee Curtis's character. And yes, there was some Michael Myers running around on the same day, too. I'm like, oh, yeah, I gotta find a way to get Michael Myers to get over to Jamie Lee Curtis, because that would make me happy. I don't know about anyone else, but that would make me happy. And then you also had, like, people do the Rakakuni chef guy thing here. And you also had people do hot dog fingers, because A24 now sells the official hot dog fingers.
And I think I was saying to you, when I was in line to get my autographs for the Saint Seiya panelist, I bumped into, like, a Rakakuni cosplayer. That guy was totally awesome.
Yeah, like, there's just something, like, amusing about just having a raccoon on your head.
It's also an incredible movie. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, better a raccoon than a rat, but that's just my opinion. Hey, Rams, let's have you plug your podcast here.
Oh, so like I said before, I host a podcast called Cosmocast. There's a lot of I feel like this podcast is supplemental to my other this podcast. So if you are interested in any of the topics that you hear from the Knights of the Zodiac panel or anything like that, please go on to http://www.stcosmocast.com. Again, the address is stcosmocast.com.
Or see link in bio.
Yeah, link in the bio. And like I said, and Jay has been on for like the SDCC episode. And like I said, it's a great time. And if you want to like hear more in depth, like from the Saint Seiya fan community's perspective of this convention, please check it out as well. Like I said, like this is like both of these podcasts are like supplemental to each other. Like they're gonna help support each other perfectly.
All right, let's get started with day one. All right, day one. We arrived into Anaheim Convention Center. We were lucky to find parking, but then again, day one is fairly light when we decided to show up early because the Saint Seiya panel, Knights of the Zodiac panel was like at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So, just kind of like just get in there, just kind of get our bearings in. Really easy to pick up our badges, no problem. And I do like how the registration pickup area, you can immediately go into the dealer's hall. So Jay and I were just kind of like just browsing around. We went over to Bandai Namco, and if you got like one of those trading figures, you can get like a free Gundam Cats tote bag.
But they didn't have any of the Yandam branded stuff, which is...
I wanted the Yandam stuff, but they didn't have it there. But like, I guess I'll have to get like some Spy X Family blind figure things. It's not the first thing in my mind. Like, I would have been happy if because I did like the Shinobu cloth like poster that they had. Like, okay, I'll pick up the Shinobu cloth poster. Like, oh, that doesn't qualify you for the
it's only
bag.
the trading figures, which is odd.
But I just wanted the bag, so like I justify like, okay, I'll just spend like just get 2 trading figures and that'll justify the cost of just getting this exclusive bag, because I think by the time it was Saturday, I didn't see anyone with the exclusive Gundam Yandam bag.
Yeah, they sold out of it probably in day 1 or early day 2.
And here you have figures from Attack on Titan, which is what I'm catching up with right now. Also, day 1, oh my goodness, yeah, the Funko Funhouse was pretty crowded, and it smelled like popped corn, which was very tempting to Jay's senses.
I do love popcorn.
I didn't really see anything like over in the Funko booth or like over at the Loungefly booth that really caught my eye. Usually, like, okay, maybe there's like 1 or 2 things that would catch my eye, but I'm like, okay, I'll give it a pass this year. I would have to say, like, there's not, like, a lot of, like, interactive booths at WonderCon. A friend of mine actually pointed that out to me, like, the one booth that had, like, a lot of interactivity, a lot of life to it, was the Funko, Funhouse booth. Because, like, yeah, like, you were given, like, a reserved time, there was, like, a little show and dance type thing. In the past, like, you used to have booths from Marvel, you used to have booths from DC, but those are no longer showcasing at WonderCon. So, if it was one industry booth that just really stood out, by default, it has to go to Funko.
On that note, I find it interesting that mainstream comics have lost, footing in terms of the dealer hall space. But a lot of indie comics, like a lot of indie comics.
I mean, I was able to check out some indie comic stuff over at WonderCon. I picked up the latest issue of Halia by Quinto Comics, and I've also picked up the first issue of Gemini from Lumpia with a Vengeance. So a really good like plethora of like different indie comics there, because I think I was like more intrigued and more like enticed by indie comics than like mainstream comics, but that's just my personal taste. And then I ran into a comic artist that remembered me from San Diego Comic-Con. It's the creator behind this really odd like dating series, rom-com fish out of water series. It's really hard for me to describe. You'll have to just look it up for yourself to pique your curiosity. The name of the publication is called Tales of the Golden Ass, or Legend of the Golden Ass. And the reason why I remember her is she did a self-portrait of her, and she's wearing a dress similar to a dress that I own. And the thing is, when I bought that portrait, like, oh my god, I look like this person in the artwork, because it's run by an Asian with long hair and also wears glasses. I too am an Asian with long hair who wears glasses and wears retro clothes, and like we're like wearing the same outfit here. So like, yeah, I always like just talking to like the indie comics people. You never know what you might find. You never know what might call to your interest. All right, day 1. So we went to the food trucks on the other side of the convention center. So Jay here, we ended up going to this rolling sushi truck here. And you had the tempura sushi?
Yeah. So they did like kind of burritos, or no, they had the option of doing it the burrito style or doing it like the standard. I went for the standard. It was pretty good. I always get nervous when it comes to sushi on a truck, but Pretty good.
Yeah, it was actually pretty decent. I had the chicken karage. It was like dipped in like spicy sauce. Like, okay, this is different, but I just need like just the rice and the chicken to just kind of like just keep getting through the day. All right, let's talk about that Knights of the Zodiac panel here, as hosted by Dan Larson, aka Toy Galaxy Guy. Who wants to start off?
Why don't you guys start off? Like, because the thing is, I've spoken so much in depth about some of the things they said, but I guess but I want to hear from you guys because like you guys are like other than my madman ranting to you guys about how amazing the series is. I want to know how you guys felt about the series, like about this panel, and how you guys feel about the movie in general. Because like I can like sit down here and tell you and just spend hours just telling you guys like everything I heard and stuff like that. But I want to know from the outsider's perspective. So why don't we start with you guys first?
I mean, the panel was good. Everyone up there seemed to be having a good time. Dan Larson was a great moderator, which, no surprise, dude talks for a living, so you should be. I would say the clips they showed were promising, and the trailer looked decent. Worried about the... It's really strange because some of the stuff from the trailer looked like it was heavy special effects, green screen background. But then we'd have clips of them like cage fighting. And I'm like, well, that's clearly not a green screen background. That's clearly two dudes cage fighting. So I think it'll be pretty decent. The one thing I did notice is I think Famke Jensen was like, what am I doing here? And will you nerds leave me alone? Haven't I gone through enough having been Jean Grey? And I was like, oh, poor Famke Jensen, you don't even want to be here. But she showed up because she's a trooper, and I appreciate that.
I wanted to say hi to her. I got to say hi to Madison. I got to say hi to Diego. And I really got to say hi to Mark Dacascos.
Which is the one person I wanted to meet because he's from Double Dragon. And other movies.
And if there was an MVP of this weekend, I think it would be Diego Tinoco and Mark Dacascos. Just those two alone are like just... I don't know why, but I don't know why they were so magnetic when I got to speak to him, and then hearing stories from the other fans that were there. It's just like those two were like on it, like they were totally on it. I really do appreciate that those two like were like the best parts.
Well, you could tell Diego was really happy to have the role, and was just super energetic about the whole project, and I think that helps. I think it really helps that you have actors in there who actually seem to care about the property.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, like Madison, she fought so hard to like get she's also another MVP. And didn't get much to talk to her, but you can tell like she from the fact from like when she was at SDCC, she said like, oh, I went the entire series in 3 weeks just before so I can get myself ready. And at this convention we found out that she fought really hard, same with the Noble, to like get some things a little more accurate to the manga and anime. And it's hearing that it's like they're fighting so hard to get things more accurate, as opposed to like something like a Dragon Ball Evolution, makes me really happy.
I think having Toei involved really helps because they can at least, try to push things in the right direction. And I don't mean involved like, oh, we stamped a thing that says America can make live action movie, but I mean it like they had representation at the panel. So I feel it's a little bit more hands-on than say Evolution was.
Oh, it definitely is. And like I said, I won't say much right now, but I would be careful with what you guys are saying right now if you guys are going to go into the depth about the panel, because I can tell you this much right now. Some people have already seen the movie already, and they cross-reference a lot of things I posted, and there might be some spoilers into it. There might be some like heavy spoilers to talk about in this panel.
This is... People generally know how I feel about live action anime, but this actually looks somewhat promising. Like, I wouldn't mind just like watching this like as a matinee at the cinemas, just to kind of pique my curiosity, because I really like the cast. They seem very energetic about it. They seem to be very happy to be a part of this project. And at the end of the day, if it's just cheese, it still could be a fun watch, because I really like seeing a lot of the stunt work in this, and I really like seeing just kind of like Mark Dacascos get work again. So I'm pretty curious about this movie, and I know it hasn't been getting a lot of marketing out here in the US, but I have a feeling it'll do well internationally.
Yeah, especially the fact that like Mexico and most of Latin America is going to get it at the same time as Japan. So it looks like they're banking on like Latin America in general to carry this movie like on the shoulders, which I think it will. I think it will do well because I think the movie's budget like 60 mil. So that's kind of on the low end of most like big budget action movies. And judging from early stuff, like from stuff I've been posting, from stuff that like they've been slowly like being slowly from people on the internet that have been leaking this information, that like the movie is actually like, if like for someone like you two who are kind of on the fence, it's actually gonna be a good movie.
Okay, interesting.
Because like that's what they said. It's like for hardcore fan, like yeah, there might be some problems, but for someone completely completely blank slate, it might be a really good movie.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go and keep an open mind, enjoy some popcorn, and just kind of enjoy like. I really like the stunt work. I really like Andy Chang's work, so I'm really looking forward to that. We'll get more into Andy Chang like on day 2, but overall,
yeah, all I gotta say is I went to the second panel, and like second panel, it will like, trust me, like a lot of your fears about it being CGI heavy, it's gonna be answered. Trust me.
yeah. So the panel gave me hope for the movie, and I actually did like seeing like a Seiya cosplayer and an Athena cosplayer. It's like, oh hey, this is pretty neat. It's like Anime Expo 1999 all over again.
Yeah.
And this is their photos right here. We got a Seiya and we have a Athena right here.
Huh.
Yeah. And like I said, like I like this was all like last minute. I'm pretty sure if we had like a month or two in advance, I think we would do a little bit more elaborate costumes. But yeah, like I said, you have like 2, if not like no less than 2 weeks of 2 weeks notice for all this. So it's kind of crazy that like all this like in 2 weeks that like at least got some cosplayers out there.
Yeah, like I know I had mentioned like, yeah, maybe I'll work on Athena, but I didn't really have time, and I didn't know that they were gonna do like all out promotion for Saint Seiya at WonderCon. It's like, had I known, maybe. But it was cool still wearing Sailor Moon during WonderCon, because I wore Usagi Tsukino in her school uniform at this panel, and because there were Toei people there, like, oh hey, people in Toei recognize me. Nice.
I would hope so. It's one of like the most famous Toei animations in America.
It was funny because there's like some photographers out at WonderCon didn't even know who I was, even when I was in regular Sailor Moon. It's like, whoa, what is going on?
This isn't an anime con, so.
But Sailor Moon is pretty ubiquitous.
It is.
Like, I get if you don't know what Demon Slayer is, or you don't know what Genshin is. Like, come on, Sailor Moon. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what's some people. That's all I gotta say.
Any hoot. So, like, yeah. I think there was a time when I was just kind of like just sort of wandering around the convention, and I think Rams, you were with me, because we thought about like maybe going into like the con suite and maybe like just getting like something to drink or like just a caffeine boost.
Mm-hmm.
And like looks like there was a convention suite, but it didn't open until like 7 o'clock in the evening, and the suite was actually called 10 Forward,
which is fun.
Mm-hmm. And Jay, you actually went on some panel adventures too.
I did.
Would you like to tell us about your panel adventures, or save that for the written report?
I can talk a little bit about it here. So I didn't do a lot of solo panel hopping on day 1. I just was not a lot was really piquing my interest and what have you, but there was a tabletop panel on creating content for tabletop, and now I'm a person who has made tabletop missions before. So when I think of that, I'm like, oh, maybe this would be some good information on making a good scenario, producing decent homebrew stuff, easier. I mean, give me some life hacks for homebrew. No, it was a bunch of people talking about like their Twitch channels and stuff, and I was like, oh, that form of content creation.
And in your defense, there wasn't even a description on that panel in the program guide. It just had the title, and that was it.
Yeah. So I had some people from like New G4 and some other people who do Twitch stuff, and I was like, I was there like, okay, let's not judge just because these are the people who are here. Maybe they'll start talking about, and they start talking about like, so when I put my channel together, I was like, I'm out. Just smoke bomb, gone, and ended up going into a different panel because I saw that there was going to be kind of a horror comics one. I was like, ooh, that'll be fun. And I was at whatever the one before was writing animation for kids or something like that, which ended with one of the best lines I've ever heard, is someone saying like, look, kids aren't that smart. but you can't treat them like they're stupid. And I'm like, good advice for anyone writing for kids. The kids might not be that smart, but you can't treat them like they're stupid. And then there was an old man behind me, and I didn't quite know who he was. And then somebody was like, Mr. Wolfman, do you need any more assistance? And I turned around, and it's freaking Marv Wolfman. If you're a comic book person, you know who he is. If you're not a comic book person, he created, and not limited to, Blade. He turned Robin into Nightwing. He ended up creating Black Cat for Spider-Man, and a whole bunch of other characters, most of whom he got screwed out of his rights on. And he used to be very salty about that at panels. He is an amazing writer and generally just a cool dude. And when he got up, I was like, hi, sir, I'm a big fan. And he just kind of like walked past me, and I was like, oh man, did he just diss me? And then when he was up on the panel, he literally at a certain point said, like, I'm sorry if I can't answer some of the questions. My hearing isn't what it used to be. And he had an assistant there, like, basically repeating the questions to him, like, point blank. And I was like, oh, he couldn't hear me at all. Like, I wasn't dissed by Marv Wolfman. He's going deaf. And, you know, hopefully someone will tell him that some guy on a podcast is a big fan. And I hope he'll appreciate that. They even, like, shuffled him out pretty quick afterwards, so I couldn't even come up to him there. I have talked to Marv Wolfman before at other cons, so it's not like I've never met the man before, but just out of pure randomness, sitting in front of him, like, blew my mind a little bit. The horror panel itself was actually really interesting. They were talking about writing, you know, horror stuff for kids, and for those who don't know, Marv Wolfman worked on a comic called The Tomb of Dracula. So,
which if you haven't listened to ancient anime, we watched the anime version of that.
Oh my god, I remember that. Oh my god.
Let's just say the comic's better.
Yes.
And it takes place in Boston.
It's essentially an anthology series, as I recall, to some extent, and there's some good writing advice there from Marv Wolfman that really kind of struck home with me, where one of his sayings is, and someone else there was, I guess, someone who apprenticed under him for a bit. So he said it, and then Marv himself said it later, probably because he didn't hear the first guy saying it, which is, when you hit a wall, turn around and go the other direction. And that's kind of his mentality towards writing. If you're writing and you just get stuck somewhere, you've clearly gone the wrong way. Turn around, go back. Just do something else, and you'll find your solution. And I thought that was actually really good writing advice for anyone with a lot of experience. Talking about just the different weirdness of trying to come up with different horror concepts. Even artists there talking about how they draw other series specifically because you can only draw so much blood and gore before it becomes like kind of monotonous and not fun. And even creatively, it just starts to look bland. And like, that's why I need to go and draw a Darkwing Duck or some Disney comics so I can just feel like a reset on stuff. So it was interesting hearing them talk about it, and it filled me a lot. You know, horror comics are a highly underrated genre, and I really do recommend them for anyone who's a horror fan. They have some based on various franchises, as I know there is I believe there's a Nightmare on Elm Street comic they did. There is multiple Hellraiser comics, some of which are supposed to be really good. And just general horror anthology series, or even those old EC comics can be wonderful, though they didn't have anyone from EC. So yeah, that was actually a lot of fun, and then I went off to meet up with everyone else.
And then you and Rams went to a wrestling comics panel.
Oh, that's right.
Rams, would you tell us more about the wrestling panel?
So I thought it was gonna be a panel about comic books and like, you know, wrestling themed comic books and stuff like that.
Which there are a few of those.
But I was surprised that it was really more about the correlation between comic books and wrestling itself. So it was just three guys just on the panel talking about like wrestling and how it connects itself, how like a lot of like stuff like modern day like wrestling or even like classic wrestling, how it like interconnects with a lot of stories in comic books, and how like the setup is very much the same way and stuff like that. Like you always have the heels, you have the baby face and all that stuff, and it was a good panel overall because like, you know, you got because like when for someone that doesn't know anything about wrestling, it just gives you an idea about like what wrestling is. And if you know about wrestling and you have no idea about comic books, it gives you an idea too about like what to expect. Like if you only know like storylines from major storylines from wrestling, and like most of the panel was just like them just discussing like, you know, how things fit throughout the years of like how different feuds, different stories kind of like came together, and them also being like, hey, you know that time, you remember how a couple days ago CM Punk's like, I never watched a Rocky movie in my life, and it's like, ooh, yeah. So it's like, yeah. So there's stuff like that. So there's a lot of like back and forth between like talking about like wrestling itself, and also talking about like the correlation with comic books. So it was a really fun time. I had so much fun. I think it's like outside the Saint Seiya stuff, this is like my favorite panel of the convention.
It really was fun just listening to a couple dudes talk a little bit wrestling, talk a little bit about comics. It was just hearing like nerds nerd out. And yeah, it's kind of strange how comics and wrestling, you have a lot of similarities in terms of like the storytelling and the world building and things like that. And, as I said when they were just having people say comments, I just talked about how as a kid, I felt this was the closest we'd ever get to seeing real life superheroes.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, sure, yeah, we got the movies we have now, but you got to think back when we were significantly younger. Special effects were not at that level, and the idea of the evil Undertaker versus the good Randy Savage was or well, my opinion, good Randy Savage. I liked Randy Savage. Although I realized that like my favorites as a kid were always like kind of on the heel side of the force. So because $1 Million Man and a Rowdy Piper and Jake the Snake were all a bit higher in my book than your standard face people. But the point is, you'd have a good guy versus a bad guy. And sometimes it's point of view, and sometimes it's legitimately, no, this character is the evil person. Like when you would get, I don't think anyone ever thought of the Undertaker as a good guy. I think he's always been kind of designed as this mysterious, dark, man.
Yeah. Yeah, but the thing is, again, this can easily be slotted in depending on like what the feud needs. Sometimes if he's against like his brother Kane or something like that, like he has to be like he has to be a good guy or something like that. Or
because Kane gets like, so dark.
Or like something like this guy or something to the extent of like like Undertaker like someone else is it well, not supernatural. He's as like he's like sticking ahead as much as he is mankind, and can take as much punishment as he is mankind. Yeah. So it's like so it's like you kind of have to have someone like Undertaker to take someone him like someone hit.
Yeah, it takes crazy to beat crazy.
Exactly. And one of my favorite comments that I'm gonna like remember for the rest of my life. Just like how you remember yourself with Mark Wolfman. Mm-hmm. They were commenting about Kevin Nash, and like they're like, oh my god, like this was like at the time when they jumped ship to WCW, and at the same time too, they're hyping another wrestler called Glacier. And if you don't know who Glacier is a guy who's essentially like he's Sub-Zero. He's like Sub-Zero via Party City.
Yes,
if that makes any sense of what I just said. It's a guy just dressed up in a Party City costume that looks like Sub-Zero.
Yep.
And but the thing was, this guy's like huge. He's like I think he's like 6'3", 6'4", and I think like Kevin Nash is like 7'1", 7'2". So it's like so the guy was like, in my mind, I thought they were hyping up when they're hyping up Glacier. I thought they were hyping up Kevin Nash. I was like, my brain just exploded. I couldn't stop laughing at that.
God.
Also, when they're referring to like, well, the back in the days when Hulk Hogan was a good guy, like,
yeah,
I just snorted like really loudly, like, Hulk Hogan, good guy, 80s. That's hilarious.
His character was a good guy. Dude was an egomaniac who screwed over a lot of good talent.
Yes, but still, I just that comment just like I just let the world's loudest like snort of like.
I think they noticed it too.
No, they did, and they all had a good laugh about it. And they're like, they were totally cool about it. But it was one of those things where it's like, oh god, I don't know why my brain went to that, but it was so much fun. Like I said, outside of the Saint Seiya stuff, this was like my favorite panel. Like, and then I was talking to you like, oh, I have to explain to you like, oh my god, I gotta send you some videos of MGF, dude. I swear to God, you're gonna love this guy so much because they kept on hyping this guy up. You gotta check out some of his stuff, man. So you gotta check out like at least some of his promos. And like, oh my god, you'll love him, man. You're gonna freaking love MGF.
All right, let's head on to the next slide here. So I went to the indie film panel. Originally wanted to go to the Filipino panel, but it looks like the indie film panel took over the Filipino panel. Like, yeah, it's all right. And I like this panel because it's run by Chris Gore and friends, and I just really like just how some of the, so how insane some of these indie movie trailers are. We saw one for like this one shark movie that takes place in New Orleans. It starts off with really bad boxing, and then like it's a shark in the bayou that surfaces in New Orleans.
Swamp shark.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy, and like okay, I'm down for like a cheesy shark movie. There was another one. I forgot the title of it because I was talking to you guys about this movie at Norms, and it was a university, it was a student film obviously, and it was about like the horrors that you would find just cramming while you're in the library like late at night. So it was a very like movie about isolation in the library, and this guy who's just studying last minute for things and working on projects last minute on things like late at night in the library, just starts seeing all this crazy stuff going around. And I thought that was pretty fascinating because I love psychological horror. There was another one. It was a movie from Finland called Sisu, and basically it's Finland farmer versus German bad guys in World War II.
Yeah, I heard someone talking about that movie on a live stream recently, and it's like, is it worth seeing? And everyone's like, yes.
Because this is what I wanted Inglorious Bastards to be, but I'm actually gonna see if I could track this down because I'm actually pretty curious about this movie. Anyway, but they had some pretty good recommendations on here, and I just like watching just like trailers that are just really off the wall. And it's not just narrative film; they also were showing off trailers from documentaries. So they had one on um, Latino Cholo culture, Pachuco culture within the Mexican American community in Los Angeles called American Homeboy. And I'm like, I'm also curious about this too because they also go over the car culture. They also go over like Zoot Zoots, Pachuco culture. It's like, I'm pretty fascinated by this. So when that comes out, they're trying to like give it like an HBO Max release, but first they want to put in the indie circuit first so it can get accolades, and when that happens, it gets a lot more value, so it'll sell at a higher price, so like a streaming service like HBO Max. So I'm actually pretty curious about that one because I always love me a good documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you told me about that documentary, because like as someone that of Latin descent and someone that used to live in Los Angeles and during that, well, not around that time period, because that was like the middle 50s and 60s. As someone that like had people that had family that grew up in that time period in that same area, and also people too that immigrated from that period that kind of like gave birth to a lot of that stuff. It was really interesting when you talked about that documentary, and I was really interested when you said that because, like I said, I know a lot about my culture, but this was like the first time I kind of want to learn a little bit more. So.
They also talked about a movie, last but not least, called Gorilla, and it stars like this guy named Mr. Lobo who does like a lot of bad movie streams on Twitch. And he also did like a lot of bad movie, like he has like his like own Elvira type show in public access TV up in Sacramento, and now he does all that stuff on Twitch these days. And like he's also in that movie too as like the investigator type person archetype in these types of movies. So yeah, Gorilla is like this exploitation like monkey movie, and I'm just curious to track this down too because when I was watching the trailer I was like, I know some of these people in this movie, and I ended up just downloading the poster and just ended up just sending that over to like Jay. I'm like, oh my god, Jay, we gotta track this down because it looks insane and I am here for this.
Oh yeah,
monkey see, monkey kill.
It's the best tagline.
I know, I love it.
All right, and then the last panel of the night, because we're going to wrap up day one, is gay geeks and where to find them. I've always wanted to check out this panel because my friend Bad Bunnies, she's one of my DC cosplay friends who cosplays as Wonder Woman. She's now moved over to Texas because I used to cosplay with her all the time. DC Bombshells, and basically it's pretty self-explanatory. Gay geeks and where to find them, and it was normally they would have this panel during the day, but this is like their first time running it in the evening. And like I said, I've always wanted to check this out because my friend was like, yeah, you gotta meet Julian. He's the host right here in the trench coat. And like, yeah, he's is into mid-century things like you, Scarlett. He's like he's not all about the drama. He's like one of the few like chill cosplayers out there. It's like, yeah, I gotta meet this person. And a lot of the people that were on the panel like were really representing X-Men, and they just kind of like just relay like just kind of like how X-Men just kind of like intersects with their queer lives. So I thought that was a very interesting discussion. And then we also got into the topic on toy collecting, specifically Barbie. And I'm like, wow, there needs to be a panel where it's just a bunch of us geeks just talking about Barbie. Because like when I was like 10 years old, like I felt like maybe I'm too old for Barbie. But then I watched that episode of The Simpsons, Lisa versus Malibu Stacy, and Smithers is on there. It's like, wait, Smithers is a dude who's probably way older than 10-year-old me. But he has a huge Malibu Stacy collection, so there is no loss for me. There is still hope for me to be an adult like toy collector. Thank you, Waylon Smithers, who's also gay, which I didn't know at the time.
I don't even know if the writers knew at the time.
But any hoot, Rams, you were also with me at the panel. Like you actually ran it. One of the dudes on the panel was also into Saint Seiya.
Yeah, he was like, oh my god, I can't believe I missed the panel. You know, first thing, you kind of outed me as a Saint Seiya fan. Like, oh god, because like they were mentioning Saint the one of the panelists. I forgot the gentleman's name, but he said like, yeah, well, some of the things that helped me, like one of the things some of the other friends like I'm into was Saint Seiya. And you said that you pointed like I got a Saint Seiya fan. Like, oh god. But afterwards, he was like the nicest dude in the world, and I wish I have like follow him on Instagram now, and like we talk to each other, and like I showed him everything because I before I got the autographs from the panelists, from like the Cosmocast, from Diego Tinoco, from Isabella Eisman, from Franca Chanton, and from that panel, and like I got to tell him like, oh, this is what you missed from the panel, this and that, like. We were just back and forth. He was such a nice dude. Everybody in this panel was so nice.
Yeah, everyone in the panel was really nice, and I ended up following them on Instagram, and they all ended up following me back. It's like, oh, that's so nice of them, because normally, like, sometimes anytime we have a cosplayer focused panel, it's like, yeah, you can follow us here, but like all of them decided to follow me back, and we actually do chit chat on Instagram. Like every now and then, we'll just comment on each other's stories. I'm like, hey, I really like this community building kind of feeling. More of this, please.
Yeah, and the same thing with the other gentleman. I wish I got the name right here in front of me because my phone's over there, and I don't want to go get it in the middle of the recording. But yeah, we've been moving back and forth, and everybody on this panel was so incredible. Like this is more a panel for you. It's fine. I'm bi, full disclosure, but at the same time too, it's one of the things where it's like I don't like to keep it low key, but I'm more like I'm bi.
Whatever. Yeah, sure.
But I'm not like promoting out there. It's like, yeah, sure, I like dudes as well, but it's one of the things when I'm kind of casual about it. But but I can sense the enthusiasm. I can sense the love coming from it, especially from you and also from the panelists. So it was really contagious, and it was really cool. It was really cool to meet these people at the end of the day. That was, I think, one of my favorite parts of the panel. Like, meeting them soon afterwards and discussing things afterwards was, I think, one of my favorite parts.
And then we had a 9:00 dinner at Norm's, and that was delicious.
Oh my god! Like, full disclosure as well, at that time I had not eaten anything since like 2 to 3 o'clock the day before. So I was running on no sleep, no food, for like approximately like 28 hours.
We offered you lasagna.
I know, but I was like, oh, I don't want to be. Like, I'm trying to be a good. I was like. I was trying to be really nice. I was like, no, that's fine. You don't have to do it for me. Don't trust me. But I was like, at the end of the day, I was like,
we're gonna work on that,
oh
dude.
my god, I should.
How many times have you been over to our house and we offer you food, and then you're all like, no, I'm good, and then you like find out later on like, I haven't had anything to eat since breakfast. I'm like, we offered you lunch. What is wrong with you? Say yes. Here is food.
All right, Jay. Let's talk about day 2. I need you to promote the Magic Candle Company.
Speaking of food, do you like the smell of popcorn or iced cream or other delicious theme park foods? You can find those in candle and air spray form over at Magic Candle Company. In addition to that, they have the scents from some of your favorite rides, including Pirate Water, Spooky House, and of course, my favorite, Extraterrestrial Forest, which reminds me of one of the last good times I spent with my dad before his passing. So if you have any of those memories you want back, or you want that smell to just give your house an extra oomph, then it's something always nice to do. They make great gifts, and they can make your car smell like your favorite ride, making your commute to work way cooler.
My car smells like Pandora. All right, day 2. Oh my goodness, getting into the convention center. So we left the house like at 10 a.m. But even then, like, there's a long butt line to get into the convention center. And there's also a long butt line to get into alternative parking over at the Toy Story lot. Yes, we could have parked in the Bullseye lot, or the Jessie lot, or the Lightyear lot. But alas, it was hell trying to get in, making that left turn. So what we did instead was like, we're probably gonna have dinner over at Garden Walk anyway. Let's park over at Garden Walk, because at least we can get parking validated if we have dinner there. So ended up parking at Garden Walk, and honestly, just having parked at Garden Walk for events over at the Anaheim Convention Center, it's actually not too bad of a walk. I mean, it is pretty long, but it's not too bad. But honestly, I'd rather foot it from the Garden Walk than to like just deal with the traffic trying to get into either Toy Story or getting to the Anaheim Convention Center when it's this wicked busy. Because this was how far back the left turn lane was trying to get into the Toy Story lot. Because by this time, by around 10 a.m., the Anaheim Convention Center parking was already full, and they were just directing people to park in Toy Story. All right, day 2. So I kicked off day 2 by just kind of like just checking out the Hellfire Gala. I know I made a joke about the Hellfire Gala like at our LA Comic Con convention team. It's like, wait, is this a ballroom dance? Because I'm down if this is a ballroom dance. But it's actually inspired by like the Met Gala, where you have like celebrities just kind of like just bust out into these designer outfits. So this is more like a high fashion runaway show with mutants. So I just kind of like just to thumb through some of the photos here, because I really like seeing like a lot of these outfits. And my buddy here, that girl with a great smile, she was their disco dazzler for this event. She's like, yeah, like to be a part of this, it's either by invite or application. So like, and like after all this, we were just kind of brainstorming just ideas for like a runway look for like any of the X-Men characters. So yeah, I'm just kind of like just thumbing through here just so y'all can get an idea of like what are some of these what some of these outfits look like. And a lot of these for the most part are original design. And this is also a fan run event, so it's not an official event by WonderCon. It's just people just kind of like, hey, let's just meet over in the jungle zone of the Anaheim Convention Center, and let's just kind of like do like this fashion walk type thing. And I always like seeing like people's original interpretations of costumes. So this is also just like fun to just take photos of and just to kind of like to see a lot of original ideas. Like I mentioned on my socials, I have a very surface level knowledge of X-Men. Most of my knowledge is based off osmosis and just based off the 20th Century Fox movies and what little Dazzler comics I've read. But I just like seeing everyone's original interpretations for each of these characters. And just like what people can pull off when you mix high fashion with comic book characters. Like just kind of like scroll through here. So yeah, day 2 in full swing, and I always like just like to highlight just some very interesting cosplays I've seen. So we have a Professor Jones cosplayer here who looks exactly like Sean Connery, and Jay's dad, and Jay's dad was like watching the movie the night before, and like he even had the umbrella. Which really amused me. And also, straight out of the land of make-believe, we have Mr. Rogers here with the neighborhood Jolly Trolley. Also, just like, did some wandering around during day 2. Did some wandering around the dealer's hall, and I'm not really big into Star Wars as I used to be, but they had like this, I believe the dealers were called like Ultra Sabers, and you can make a custom lightsaber, and they were building those like right on the spot. So you can choose your hilt, you can choose the color of your lightsaber, you can choose the kind of sounds you want on your lightsaber, and basically they'll build it for you right at the con. Basically, you would just kind of like just do like a Build-A-Bear type thing, and then you just get like a pickup time for your lightsaber. And I was actually checking the people like in the back, just kind of like building and just kind of like building and like just installing and just kind of like just making lightsabers and back, and I thought that was pretty cool. I mean,
So it's a more elaborate. It's a more elaborate version of what they do over at Galaxy's Edge, where you can actually build your own lightsaber there as well.
it's
But
also with Ultra Sabers, they're a lot more durable and you have a lot more custom options. Whereas over at Disney, you have a limited number of options and you can only
yeah,
pick one color. And you do get like a baptism ceremony for your lightsaber, which is also supposed to be pretty cool too. But for this one, you get to choose like a variety of hilts. You get to choose like what kind of colors you want your light to be, and when your like saber hits something, it actually makes like a sound.
Ooh,
ooh,
that's always fun.
And you could also add some custom sounds in there, so you can even have the Dragon Zord noise in there too.
The
ooh.
whistle?
hmm
That's so dumb. I kind of love it.
Yep.
I can't stop smiling thinking about that.
Yeah, so you have between 300 to 500 to drop.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
I'm
Ultra.
always running around with that kind of cash, just throwing it at toy swords.
Any hoots? So like yeah, as I mentioned before, like this is just one of the photos from like the indie commentaries. This is Quinto Comics. Luckily we ran into them while ABC7 was doing an interview with them. I think we're in the background. I haven't made effort to like see if we're in the background for the ABC7 interview, but they're a indie comic book company that does like a lot of Filipino mythology with like modern fantasy.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, hey, and look, there's another Everything Everywhere All at Once cosplayer, and they cosplayed as The Rock
I mean, you may as well.
with the googly eyes. Yeah, they're just carrying like this rock thing like as a backpack, and they have the googly eyes. It's like a giant pillow.
I love it.
All right, Rams, let's talk about the Saint Seiya 101 panel.
All right. So since they won one panel, the thing. So the panel started off with Dan Larson pretty much going at pretty much giving his what happened with Saint Seiya video that he did. I think like a year ago.
Ish.
So if you haven't seen that video, go check that video out. It's a really good video on. It's a really good video essay on Saint Seiya, like what happened with its success and what happened here in the United States. And what I think that struck me is like this is all on Toys on Toys time, and they were allowing him to talk about stuff like the 2003 Knights of the Zodiac dub, and like how much of a disaster that was. I made this comment on my podcast. I was like, if I was at that panel and I was Toy, there would have been like a red dot beaming right at Dan Larson. It's like ready to strike. Like, we'll stop. Wait for it, because it's like one of the things where it's at the end of the day. Hold on.
Do. I am talking, so we don't have dead air.
Yeah, my brain was just thinking about that to my radio training. Don't allow dead air. If you have nothing to say, go tell people the time and the weather.
Okay, the time right now is 4:10 Pacific Standard Time. Oh, it looks like a plane is passing by San Diego. What kind of plane is it? But is it really a plane? Is it Superman?
I'm sorry. It's like there was a plane that was like really close, and I had to stop. I had to stop. It was like, son of a. At the worst time when I'm doing this talking, I am so sorry, guys.
Yeah, do continue on telling us about the Saint Seiya panel.
So yeah, like I said, like it was a really interesting panel to like check out. Like, so the first part of it was that Saint Seiya 101 thing, and then what I like afterwards is they brought in all the stunt actors. They brought in Andy Chen and his stunt family, and they described like how it was filming the movie, and it was like, to be honest with you, like I know you guys were saying like you guys were afraid the movie was gonna be like CGI heavy. It's not. Because like I can tell you right now, I think a lot of it is going to be like a lot of wire work, a lot of hand-to-hand combat, a lot of that type of thing. So it's going to be so for the most part, it's going to be really cool, like action sequences with like a lot of like hand-to-hand combat, like practical effects, and they're going to use CGI very sparingly. So it's not going to be like suddenly you're going to have like a really CGI up like person like all of a sudden it looks kind of off like most movies are nowadays. So.
I guess I should say my bigger fear should be when they activate their battle armors. That's just going to literally be like a CG cartoon and not like actual actors.
No, they described some of the things that they described some of the armors they had to wear, and it's all practical.
Okay,
Everything they're
that's
wearing
good.
is all practical in them.
That is
Some of the CGI how
reassuring.
they put it on is all. Some of how they put it on is all CG, but they described some actors said like because there's these things called these guys named the Black Knights. And in the movie, like their armors are kind of like this big clunky thing that you can't like. Looks like that's all like one piece, that kind of like one big piece of armor coming out of them. And they said that's all practical, and they couldn't see anything out of it, and they couldn't like move that much, but they had to like do so many stunts out of it. So, props to them for like doing a lot of crazy stunts while wearing that crazy armor.
Good.
And they also described a stunt where it's like they literally took them like 27 takes, and they broke one of the rigs.
Oh.
So, and then like there's one particular gentleman at this panel. His name is David Torok. And he's like if you're talking about people that are like the biggest, like the biggest cheerleaders for this movie, David Torok is one of the biggest cheerleaders. Anytime there's something that someone posts something on Twitter or on Instagram, he's the first. He also reposts them, gives them all the credit and everything. Because like anything with Saint Seiya, because like you can tell like he's really proud of his work, and he says like the guy took like three kicks to the head during one stunt, and he got an ear infection.
Oh.
And he's still doing all this stuff. So like props to like David Turok. If you're listening, which I'm pretty sure I'm gonna share this to him. And most likely he will repost this. Like if you're listening, you like I said to you at the panel afterwards. I said like you're like you're one of the heroes of the fandom right now. Like giving us all this like posting everything, being excited for it. So. Yeah, and then also too, I learned that some of the voice actors actually listen to the show, and I'm like, that kind of blew my mind. I won't say who, I won't say, but it kind of blew my mind that someone looked at me and I gave them my card and I gave them my sticker, and they're like, "I know you." I'm like, and I just like my flight or fight turned on. I was like, I didn't know what to make of it.
Just cracking his knuckles. I heard
everything...
what you said about the first movie. Yeah, it may have been synoptic. That doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah, but he's really happy that there's people like me in the fandom that are doing this stuff in English, and like I said, like out of everything that happened that weekend, meeting so many actors, hanging out with you guys. That was, I think, one of like my favorite moments of the convention. Just hearing that someone from the production, being that foot soldier role of being a stunt person, listens to the show, really was an eye opener, and really was like a like that motivational boost I needed at the time.
All right, let's move forward with day 2. Wait, that's the previous slide. And then we decide to also just kind of like just roam around the dealer's hall a little bit more. One booth we'd like to highlight is Tea and Absinthe. I've known these folks since we were going to conventions in Boston, and it was so nice to see like a taste of home over at WonderCon. So we ended up just buying a couple of tea, this and that from them. We're currently sipping on the Crystal Gems tea right now. It's delicious, and it's just really nice to just kind of have a taste of home, because I'm missing these guys at conventions, because there's only one East Coast con I really go to now, and that's Anime Boston. I don't really see them there, but it's just so nice that they've expanded their teas, because their teas are themed to like different fandoms. So they have Steven Universe, Doctor Who, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I just really like their selections. And they have a really smooth blend to it. So if you ever see these folks vending at conventions, highly recommend checking them out. They're one of my personal favorites. And here we also have Jay cosplaying as Reno on Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah, that's you just taking that selfie there. In pensive mode, because you were thinking whether or not to donate blood.
Yep. Decided because of time with my panels, I really couldn't make it work, which I feel bad about.
Well, there's always another time. And also just kind of just running around the convention. You had like some Call of Duty themed like Team Rocket grunts running around. I was like, ah, dang, kind of want to bust out Giovanni again. And these were like one of the few people that recognized what Jared was cosplaying from.
Yep.
And you also have Hollywood Hogan here, which amused me.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I can't believe I missed this guy. I'm like, oh my god.
Well, we captured it here for you, just for you, Rams. Also,
Awesome.
one of the more amusing things on day 2, speaking of people just making their own fun, you have like this Twitch streamer known as Lamar, and he's like he had like his own karaoke setup. This is not an official thing from the con. It's like, yeah, we're just gonna like to stay here until the convention center kicks us out, and they were there until like late into the evening. So ended up doing karaoke to Frankie Valli's "Oh What a Night," and that was a lot of fun because we had a lot of time to karaoke and then host Mythology of Final Fantasy: A Summoner's Guide to Summons. Also, speaking of people making up their own fun, here you can see like the giant Knights of the Zodiac banner that was just hovering over the fountains, hovering over the convention center and this main plaza right here. And people were just random, just got a boombox out and just started randomly dancing. So you had like Cupid Shuffle, you had Cotton Eye Joe, and I'm just trying to remember, it's a Mexican like line dancing song. It's like, I just know it's about a guy and his horse. I just forgot the Spanish title because I have that on my Spotify playlist because I hear it like at every like Mexican party I've been to. But yeah, that was still a lot of fun. Just kind of like just seeing just people just make up their own fun like as we get into the later hours of the day. All right. Let's bring up our another sponsor, Annie Marketplace. Annie Marketplace is an organization here in Southern California that runs a couple of conventions and fandom events. Annie Marketplace, our flagship event, is basically an anime swap meet where fans can sell their old wares and artists can also sell their art. And occasionally you'll have some musical performances. You'll have a cosplay contest. So Anime Marketplace, it's kind of like Comic-Con, but Los Angeles. They also run SoCal Idol Fest, which is coming up in August, and they also run TohoCon, which is coming up later this month in Torrance. So check out Anime Marketplace for their upcoming events. And our friend Ivory Ice actually drew their mascot right here. I love their artwork. All right, day 3, Rams, you had to like just get on the bus back to San Diego.
Yeah, because I was like, look, I love you guys, I really do, and I cannot believe how much I appreciate all this work and everything you guys did for me, and also all the effort you guys did for me and all that stuff. But I had to go, and it was like also too like also too another thing was realizing that like I was at the dealer hall, and I didn't really find much really. So I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, you know what, I think I think I'm checked out. Like, you know what, I think I'm done. So I went, and just as I stepped out, just as I said my goodbyes to you guys, I got a message saying, "Oh yeah, your bus is delayed for like another 2 hours."
Oh, dang.
And I was like, okay, fine. So I decided to turn into a positive, and so I stayed and got some food. Clarified a lot of things about like the previous panels, just in case to the fandom, because like apparently, like I said, you got like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people were tuning in because like a lot of people were looking at my Twitter because like they didn't allow video of a lot of things. So it was me and another mutual friend of mine, Mao, who runs another Saint Seiya podcast, but he also runs like his own like Saint Seiya YouTube channel. So it's at CDZ MX. That's his stuff. He also runs a podcast called El Acuario de Camus, which is a pun on the Aquarius and Camus, and it being like an aquarium. So, if you know Spanish, it's kind of a stupid joke. So it was him and me, and like pretty much all the fandom were seeing my tweets. So you guys, by extension, you guys were since you guys helped me get to it, you guys were like the biggest contributors to actually getting someone out there to discuss a little bit more of those panels. So I said to him, like, look, if there's one person that you did that you guys should be grateful of, it's you two.
Thanks, Rams. That's really sweet. And we hope that you can join us on an adventure at San Diego Comic-Con this year too.
I'm gonna talk to you guys about that.
Okay. Let's talk about that after the show. But anyway, We're going to move forward with day 3. So Jay and I ended up parking again at the Anaheim Convention Center. No problem finding parking, getting in. I decided to take a side street route into the Anaheim Convention Center. I did a roundabout route, and it actually was a lot easier and less stressful to take this route. So if we're going to the Anaheim Convention Center, we're probably going to take this route. So I mainly spent like most of the morning just kind of like just taking photos of cosplayers before the convention center opened up. So I ran here to Cosplay Mom 99, and she was cosplaying as Jamie Lee Curtis from Everything Everywhere All at Once, and she made her walker her desk. And basically she was just posing with various cosplayers like, okay, why hasn't this fictitious character filed their taxes, or what are they getting audited for? So I just did like a Usagi dirt face here with Jamie Lee Curtis. Also, you had like a guy cosplaying as Fix It Felix. He was just kind of like running around as on-site cosplay repair. And I always appreciate people who have like cosplay repair toolkits with them at the con. And also, day 3, you had the Over 30 Cosplayers meetup. Decided to check that out. I was cosplaying as Sailor Moon. I think I didn't get any photos of me in it, but I was part of the Over 30 group, and then and they kept on calling like just every single decade. So next, over 40, over 50, over 60, and so forth. And it was just kind of cool just meeting Jen, who runs Over 30 Cosplay, and I was like, hey, like, be down to do a panel with y'all. And it was just nice to just formally just introduce myself to like just someone who runs like this group here. And again, this is kind of like where you can see the front of the Anaheim Convention Center, and you can just see Sean Bean and Famke Johnson just tower over cosplayers at the cosplay meetups here.
Also, you can see McKenna also in the back there as well as Seiya.
Yeah, and Madison Eastman. Only reason why I mentioned Sean Bean and Famke Jensen is like it's 006 and Xenia on the top of GoldenEye fame. Alright, day 3. Ended up cosplaying from Sailor Moon, so I ran into a couple of other Sailor Senshi cosplayers around the convention center. Ran into a Wicked Lady here, and I also ran into Sailor Neptune. She made her own Sailor Neptune cosplay. And Sailor Tina, which is I believe is an original design inspired by Bob's Burgers.
From, I think, a comic book cover or something? I know it comes
Probably.
from something. I just don't remember what.
Probably, because I know, like, sometimes I'll see, like, a Sailor Moon, like, design on a Western comic. Because I know they did that for Archie when they had, like, their 90s Americana series. And they had Veronica cosplaying as Sailor Veronica. And, like, her bow design, like, just had, like, a dollar sign. Nice. Which makes sense. Yeah, day 3, I always like taking a last day at the con, like, we're so out of it, photo. Like, this is you and me here, right before we had to do the Make Mine Mecha panel, which was, like, the second to the last, panel of the day. Like, we were, like, in the later slot, during the day. So we're just kind of into the back here. It's like, yeah, we're just trying to survive. Just trying to hang on for one more. Yeah. But I think our Make Mine Mecha panel went fairly well.
Yeah, it's always a fun one to do. We ran out of time because I got new information, so it's always cool. It just means I need to rearrange things so I can get to that new information sooner.
And we have to also update our slide deck too, so they can also look as nice as our Convention T slides and some of our newer slides, because we also just revamped our Mythology of Final Fantasy slides to cater to just something that looks a little bit more new and clean. And yeah, that's one of our goals for next convention when we do panels. Also, just a lot of wandering around the dealer's hall day 3. Ended up picking up a couple things over at Artist Alley. Ended up picking up a couple things like here and there that were Genshin related. One thing I wanted to highlight about the Artist Alley is they had like a Final Fantasy 14 stamp rally. I only completed like half of it. I could not find for the rest of the dealers that were on that stamp rally. And basically was you would just stop by. There's a couple booths you had to stop by. Half of them were in Artist Alley, which was really pretty easy to find because they were on the same row. And basically, they would just ask you, like, a Final Fantasy related question. Like, who's your favorite character? Who do you main in 14? And so forth. I wanted to find the other half that I had to go to, but, like, the map was kind of confusing when I was trying to compare it to what was on the map for WonderCon. It's like, I give up. Like, it's okay. But I like the idea that artists were, like, just doing their own thing, and they just had, like, a stamp rally around the dealer's hall. It's just unfortunate that, like, I can't find the other dealers. Also, we picked up a dice tray for our friend Ethan here. These are pretty sweet
My
dice
brother?
trays. Yeah.
Our
Friend of the show.
Fine. Yes, got a nice dice tray and
Oh,
stuff for my brother.
I was at this booth and I was debating to buy one of these, but they didn't have a color I was looking for.
Yeah, because we were kind of like looking for a color that Ethan would like. And these are nicely 3D printed, and they were also doing some 3D printing like on site, like as like over at the booth too. It's like, yeah, I'm also happy to see like a lot of tabletop gaming related booths selling either dice trays. Um, there was this one booth, one of my favorite booths, Tabletop Witchy, that was also selling like dice as necklaces, dice in like these cottagecore like themed jars, and like the dice were also like themed to characters. Like, okay, they have a Your Forger and a Lloyd Forger like dice set, and I'm like, okay, next time. I wasn't thinking about spending money on dice.
Why you should have told me. I could have bought those. Oh my god.
Okay, next time I see them at a convention and you're there, like I'll take you over because I didn't see them
Please.
until
Please,
day
please,
3,
please.
and they were also selling candles from Cantrip Candles, and I ended up getting the Mossy Chapel one, which is nice. It has a nice soapy scent. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up getting a dice tray for Ethan, and yeah. Also, just kind of just running around the con, because Sunday is a fairly light day. I ended up doing 2 photo shoots with Luna and Chris Zolita. Luna, the person, not Luna, the cat. Yes, I was cosplaying as Sailor Moon, and the person who was taking my photo is a friend of mine by the name of Luna, not the cat, but that image would be funny of Luna trying to attempt a photo shoot. Ran into this Adams Family cosplay group, and like, hey, we were supposed to do Gomez and Morticia from WonderCon, but I ran out of fabric for Morticia, and I totally underestimated that. All right, we're just about to wind up this episode of Convention Tea. And our last sponsor, Convention Tea, is brought to you by YEMAC Sweater. And remember, if you use the code YEMAC-Dame Azabel, you can get 40% off your total purchase at YEMACSweater.com. YEMAC Sweater has vintage-inspired cardigans, cozy wear, and so much more. So highly recommend checking them out if you're looking for something cozy to add to your wardrobe. And again, use our code YEMAC-Dame Azabel to get 40% off your total purchase. All right, final thoughts. Let's go around the room.
I guess I'll begin.
Yeah.
Overall, the convention was pretty good. I did a little bit of panel hopping and stuff, and some of the panels I went to weren't great. Like the UFO one was not what I expected it to be. It wasn't terrible. It just half the panel was them promoting like their stuff, less so than like talking about like UFOs and their impact on the sci-fi and stuff like that. But whatever. Also, running across the convention center to go from that panel to a different panel was like a thing. So, but the one thing I'll say about the convention center is I understand the layout well enough. I've been there enough times where I can just kind of navigate on my own. The crowds weren't that crazy, but I think it might be due to less people attending, like you were kind of thinking earlier in the show. I always get a decent audience for my panels, which I do appreciate. And overall, I think I generally had a good time. There's definitely some panels I missed that I wanted to go to that half the time I didn't even realize until I found them. I'm like, oh, and that's an hour ago. Well, that's on me. So I had moments like that. But other than that, pretty decent. And I just generally like the Anaheim Convention Center. I keep forgetting how large that place is.
And how larger it has become.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even use the whole space, but Anaheim Convention Center is pretty huge.
Mm-hmm.
Rams, what are your final thoughts on WonderCon 2023?
Okay, so my final thoughts is that I'm gonna look at it from 2 perspectives. From a Seiya, Knights of the Zodiac fans' perspective, it was like the greatest weekend of all time. It's like helping out the panels, getting that info out, meeting some of the actors, be doing all this stuff was a dream. It was like I couldn't believe what I was doing, and I was really happy about that. As someone that goes to conventions often, stuff like that, I felt it was one of those situations where I felt like the same thing as Jay, where it's like I go and I see some of the stuff, and there really wasn't really much to for me to do for the most part. And anything I got to do outside of the Saint Seiya stuff, like it was kind of a plus. So for me, for the most part, the convention was like I would say it was above average from like a convention goer's experience, from like especially since like I've done this before. But from like someone that's there for business for a particular thing I'm doing, it was I think one of the best convention experience I've had in my life. But like I said, like I had to, I like since like I kind of want to divorce this and look at it from perspective of someone that goes to conventions. You know, for me, I guess what I want from a convention is I want there to be a little bit more variety and a little bit more transparency as to like what some of the things, the panels and stuff like that are. So that way, it's like there wouldn't be a situation like what happened with Jay, where it's like he goes to a panel and it's actually more of an influencer panel than it is a panel about about actual like D&D like tactical things. So I kind of wish that there was a little bit more transparency towards stuff like that. That way, too, the ambiguity. Like I go to a panel and I go there, like it's not what I expected. I remember walking into a panel. You guys were like, "Oh, go to this panel," and you guys it was a panel for Power Rangers, and it just kind of deviated to a Q&A, and I was like, "This isn't really my vibe," because usually Q&A is kind of like you kind of like go into like cringe territory. I'm like, that's fine. See Salem Ward and seeing Dan Southward was great because I love those two. Like, just two of my favorite Power Rangers. And also Walter Jones, the original Black Ranger. Shout out to him, he was there too. And it was one of the things was like, oh, when they said, oh, we got the mics, I was like, oh, I kind of sunk in my seat and like, you know what, I'm out of here. And I was like, and that's the thing. It's like it was not like I had that same experience with you, Jared, where it's like I thought that was gonna be one thing, but I was like, no, this kind of turned out to be something else.
Yeah, definitely
So
issues with that with panels for sure. Although I don't want to interrupt, but this just reminded me of one of the weirder panels I went to, and it kind of filled me with joy. Was a I think it was a 30th anniversary for the Ultraverse. And for those who don't know, there was an independent comic imprint in the 90s for about 2.5 years or thereabouts called Malibu Comics, which gave us a bunch of comics that I would say that no one would know, and the people who brought the original Men in Black comic to America, which is a trip, and I recommend if you ever get the chance to find the TPB of the original story, because it's not at all what you would expect it to be. But it's nice to have something like that, or the wrestling panel we were talking about earlier. Like, we get these ones that are at least nice, huge surprises. And then we had other ones, like the tabletop panel I went to, the UFO panel, where it was just like oh, this is not really what I wanted. And it's really weird that this is one of the only cons I can think of where I really had that experience, and you did as well.
Yeah, so that's so it's like one of the things where it's like I said, I wish there was more variety in that type of thing, less influencer based, more like experience based type of thing, a little bit more transparency as to like what the panels should be about, and also like just overall like just have have a little bit more do a little bit do a little bit more. That's what I want. Like do a little bit more on the programming side of things. And like I said, but the other one wasn't too bad. Like I kind of went in expecting not to find that much at all. The only thing I came out of the convention with was the Gundam Ariel, because like I brought mine for $16, not 60, 16, 16. I gotta remind myself like whenever I say 60, it sounds like whenever I say 60, it sounds like 60. So I gotta keep reminding myself that like I gotta remind myself it sounds like that. So and then I was like, for the most part, I was like, whatever I find is gonna be extra. I didn't really find much at all, and I was like, I'm gonna see if there's the new Transformers Evolutions. I didn't find it. For the most part, I was like, you know what, I should have bought those. I should have bought that dice tray. I should have if you would have told me about those Yor and Lloyd dices, I would have brought those. Because I'm starting to get more and more into dice stuff. And I saw the dice and I was like, ooh, I want that, but they don't have a color I like. So it was like, and I didn't want to bother them. Like, hey, can you put me up a color of this? Like, oh yeah, but it's gonna take you 4 hours. Like, no, I don't want to ask you for that. I'm sorry. But regardless, I had a fun time. Like I said, I want this. I guess what I want more if they want to go forward with this, is just have a little more transparency as to what the programming is, and that's about it, really. I love the size of it. I love that there's it's that perfect mix of having a lot of people and not a whole lot of people where the claustrophobia is just sets in. So the only time I felt like it was overwhelming was when I had to get in line for the to get the autographs. But the good news about that was like I won a lottery for that. So like that's fine. I'm not a I wasn't like, oh my god, I wasn't panicking. I was gonna be the last one. Like I knew it was gonna be packed. I knew this was gonna happen. So like I expected myself to be like shoulder to shoulder with people, and I came in like with my mask on, already prepared. Like okay, I'm gonna be shoulder to shoulder with people. This is and so like that's fine. And yeah, and what I liked also too is like it was like since the convention is so huge, there like you can find a seat like if you feel overwhelmed there's always going to be a seat somewhere, or you can always sit down somewhere, and no one's going to be like, "Get out of the sight, like get out here, like you're blocking the path." Like, no, for the most part, it's like you can sit down in a corner and or sit down on a wall and just be comfortable and just like take a few minutes, like you can find your own, you can find your little alcove, and just like relax for a little bit and just do all this stuff. Oh my God, it's Malo de Cinco or Jenny de Cinco. She's in the chat. Hi, we're talking about you before we started. Anyways, that's my review of the panel.
Yeah, so my thoughts on WonderCon, I thought it was pretty good. Um, I just tend to stress out anytime like there's like a lot of traffic going in, just parking, just
yeah.
the whole like day two thing, just trying to like strategize where we're gonna park and like if we get parking, like how far away it's gonna be from the convention. That's just one of the things you just kind of have to deal with the Anaheim Convention Center. Programming wise, there wasn't really in terms of programming that was really calling to me. I was just kind of feeling bummed, like, ah, dang, like the Filipino panel was canceled, but I liked the indie films panel. I'm glad I checked out the Gay Geeks and Where to Find Them panel. And glad I got to meet Julian Jetson and other folks on the panel. I did like really exploring the dealer's room. They had like a lot of Genshin merch. I like looking through Artist Alley. I like looking through the indie comics. So for me, it was like more of a like, yeah, let's just kind of like just browse around like Artist Alley, all the indie vendors. I was very happy to get the Nyandem eco bag. I really glad I got that shopping tote. I got some photo shoots in with Luna, Robert Torres, Chris Solita. Um, but I will say this because I know you guys touch upon like influencer culture kind of invading panel space. My random hot take on that is I just feel like if you're running a panel, run a panel to educate. Don't use it as a platform to self promote and self flagellate. It's like, guys, like, yeah, you can definitely mention your website, your channels, like towards the end of the panel. But when you're doing a panel in front of an audience, I really feel it should be more educational than like just you talking about yourself because it just I don't know that kind of attitude just kind of turns me off because when I go to a panel, I'm there to learn. I'm there to like just learn something new.
Yeah,
And
I felt like but and Mother Cinco, she says like plugging stuff is okay, but the panel should be the panel first. And that is correct. I was gonna say it's like I guess that was the biggest problem with this convention where it's like, I felt like there was a lot of like influencer like showing off first and then using and then using that platform to like discuss their things first before before telling a story or telling us like what their tactics are, because I think at the end of the day you're there to pretty much tell people, you're there to educate, you're there to you know talk to people and give a presentation. It's not something you go up there to promote your wares. You go you for me, you're for me like when it comes to like panels, it's like it's always gonna be like presentation first, and then like self promotion second, because that's always gonna be like what's important for me. And I'm saying that was one of the biggest problems with this convention. That was like it felt like that was secondary. Very rarely did you have a panel where it was all like about the other things outside of it, like but there were, And that's the thing. Like I want to be clear that like there were a lot of great panels that are not like that. Like the wrestling panel, the gays and where to find the gay LGBTQ plus stuff. That was incredible. I really like those panels. Like it wasn't really my vibe, but I do respect and I do really like that. I do really like that. So like it's not to really diss on it, but like I felt like this year it was really a lot of it was really a lot of influencer focused things.
Yeah, I also noticed that just kind of like I could only take so much being outside because don't get me wrong, I love taking photos, call photos of cosplayers just so I can document like what were the popular fandoms, what are some unusual cosplays, what are some rare cosplays um for Scarlet Rhapsody. I mean, I like just kind of I call it my Condorlust, if you will, just kind of like just wandering around, just go where the wind takes me. What I've noticed, and this I thought it was me at first, but I actually confirmed it with a couple of my friends who were at WinterCon, like the influencer and clout thirst vibe from photographers was real. And there were just some photographers out there, I won't name names or provide descriptions, that were just outright rude. And I'm like, I just didn't really like that vibe. And like, or sometimes like I'll be in an area cosplaying as Sailor Moon and a photographer will take photos like just every like thing there, but completely ignore me, even though they've made eye contact with me. So it wasn't just me who was getting this vibe from like just clout chasing photographers. Um, on my private socials, people have mentioned that they've also got that same vibe from this group of photographers that were present. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm glad to know like some amazing photographers out there, but I just really don't like the fame chasing part of cosplay, the clout chasing part of cosplay. It's just an energy that I don't vibe with. And when I kind of see that spill into the community with people like, I just want to just catch up with or just chit chat with, or it just kind of like just feels like, it robs like an opportunity to work with someone, to work with a photographer. But like, at least now I know you're kind of a jerk and you only care more about fame than you care about art. And I rather hang with the people, I rather roll with the people who care about art rather than people who just will chase for fame. And I'm specifically talking about photographers and from my experience just being at WonderCon. Anywho, but overall, program wise, like I said, there wasn't really many panels I was vibing with, but I really felt they had a pretty strong Dealers Hall, Artist Alley, and Indie Comics section. It was also nice just to catch up with friends here and there that I only get to see at cons. And if anything, I'm pretty hyped for San Diego Comic-Con, and I'm always grateful with WonderCon and their parent company, San Diego Comic-Con, for always asking us to just come back and do panels for them because, like, yeah, like, we're more than happy to provide programming. We're more than happy to provide educational panels. And those are always fun for us to do, and it always just kind of gives an excuse, like, like, let's just go ahead and just check this out because I'm at a point where, like, I'll only do AX if they ask us to do panels because, like, I just don't want to bother with AX anymore. I'll only do it if they ask us to do panels, but San Diego Comic-Con, surprisingly, I had a great time last year, and I'm really looking forward to doing this all over again with friends this year. So those in general are my final thoughts. You can read more when we have our report on the website. Hopefully we'll get this done before Anime Boston, which is coming right around the corner. I don't want to think about it. And let's just kind of like, what are just some next slides here? Yeah, final thoughts. Just going down that escalator. Final thoughts. I just love this Snorlax cosplayer just kind of just chillaxing on this chair. And I think this pretty much just sums up like just us at the end of the con. Just Snorlax just kind of like taking a nap outside on a rocking chair. Us millennials doing conventions in our late 30s,
that was
early
you
40s.
guys. That was you guys. For me, I was just ranting and raving like a madman. I was like that episode, that episode of Simpsons where Bart sells his soul and and then Chief Quimby, and like the chief is like, oh, hey, I gotta talk on this ranting man, this ranting man going all over the place. That was me. But and okay, so full disclosure, on Sunday when I came to record, like they like literally make us and turn right for they're like, you're in no condition. You gotta get off. They looked because I was like, it's like, get food, get some rest, get some food, get some rest, and we'll do this tomorrow. Like I'm like, you.
All right, let's just kind of just wrap things up here. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Convention Tea. Thank you for joining us for another dose of Convention Tea. This has been Scarlett.
And Jay.
And Ramses.
And we hope to see you at the con. And remember, the con is what you make of it, so make it a good one. And remember to follow us on our website, www.scarlet-rhapsody.com, to read our archive of convention reports and to also support us on Ko-Fi. If you like our show and what we do, $1 goes a long way if you donate to our Ko-Fi. It could pay for parking. It could pay for, like, tip if we're at the California Pizza Kitchen, which we did on Saturday night. But anything you would like to throw in so we can keep doing these things and providing you thorough convention coverage for all time. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, we will see you at the con.